everyone, I'm Jess, and I have to confess, I bought about 25 books in March. March 2018 was a pretty good month for me. We had The Beast from the East in the first month, so Wrap Up Warm. Children of Blood and Bone came out, I think, that week. I had an exam that was a retake of one that I failed in January. I passed. I'm in London when I take my exams, so you've got to celebrate by going out and spending a load of money on books, which I did. I was working in Eastbourne, and 20 seconds away from the shop is this beautiful Camilla's Bookshop, it's called, and it's just jam-packed with old books, some quite expensive, some cheaper, used books, collector's books, all sorts of things. I then had 3 book boxes coming in. February's Illumicrate box came through in March, and then of course we had the Fairy Loot and Owlcrate, and then I went to 2 book events and of course had the books to get ready for those, and bought a couple of books whilst I was out going to those as well. And then at the end of March I went for 3 or 4 days to Edinburgh, and then I went to Amsterdam before coming home. So I only bought 3 books whilst I was actually kind of exploring on a holiday, because obviously travelling, trying to get books back home is always a lot of weight and heavy and going to ruin them. So I bought 25 books, and I probably only finished one that I started in December. I'm in such a huge reading slump, so I need to start, you know, reading at the rate I'm buying, and you know, that was nearly a book every day this month, so let's see how it gets going. The first book that I got out of the box was the ARC that was included, and that is The Smoke Thieves by Sally Green, who wrote the Half Bad trilogy. I'm not sure if it is called the Half Bad trilogy, and my dog is going mental. What? I will be reading this sooner rather than later, hopefully before it comes out, to give a bit of a thought. It always feels quite exclusive and nice when you get to read something before it's actually out. So really wicked book to get a hold of, and you know, I'm always going to be up for getting a book or starting a new book subscription box if they've got an ARC included. Fantastic. So the official book included for the Illumicrate box Rise Up was Blood and Sand by C.V. Wyke. Not completely sure. This is a very full cover. I'm trying to make it so that you can actually kind of see it without all of the reflection dancing off of it. Very foiled cover. We've got a signed book plate, which I've just lost onto the floor, to include and put it on there, but it's not got anything to do with the artwork on the front, which is a bit odd. A kind of Roman battle and warriors and kick-ass women, and looks like a good bit of fun, so shall be looking forward to reading this until I eventually get round to it. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. What is it with names, like, you know, some of the names that I'm getting recently. So City of Brass is a book that I saw first at Youk, was the first mention I heard of it, and then I saw the cover, I saw it come up on Goldsboro, signed edition, first edition, look at the covers, sprayed blue edges, signed by the author, number 164 or 9, I think it's probably 169 of 250 numbered copies of the first edition, in association with Goldsboro Books, March 2018. This says £12.99, but I'm pretty sure I paid more like £25 for it, and then postage was another £5 on top. Gorgeous book, don't regret it at all, and chunky, so I'll get into reading this again whenever I get round to it. The next book that I bought is not signed, but it is a Waterstones exclusive edition. That's Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Yes. And this is the red sprayed edition that came exclusively to Waterstones, and so I had to have it. I didn't want an occasion of her to come here and then for me not to have this edition specifically designed. That would be just cruel. Again, the first time I heard of this was at Youk. I would have heard of this first. I probably got a sampler for it and then have kind of had a look out for it. Saw that there was going to be this edition at Waterstones and just knew I had to have it, and this would have been regular price of £7.99. The next book that I bought was a order, probably a slightly discounted price from Book Depository, and that is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. Now, this is the hardback because this is not available in the UK yet, so Scythe and Thunderhead have been out for a little while in the US. I heard a little bit about it a couple of months ago, and then suddenly Scythe appeared in paperback format in Waterstones by like the piles. There was huge amounts of it being suddenly released, and he turned out he was coming over this month, and I found out, and I was like, okay, I need to get both books, and I would prefer to have it in hardcover. This unfortunately is a little bit beaten up, just like on the edges. It's kind of lost its colouring where it's been folded, because the actual kind of material that this is kind of printed onto is not great. It's not very protective, and Book Depository don't send their stuff very well protected. But of course I got this signed, and he even dated it for us. That's quite nice, the 19th of March 2018. He has done so many books, and I didn't realise that I think I have like had one or two that I've put onto my list. But yeah, this arrived, and it's not been released yet in the UK, so I was lucky to get this and get it signed by him at the event. The next book to arrive was another pre-order from Goldreads, and that is Folk by Zoe Gilbert. Gorgeous book once again, and black sprayed edges, which I think is really, really lovely. Number 58 of 700 numbered copies, signed by the author. A lovely, gorgeous book, and I can't remember, probably, you know, $15.99 it says in here, closer to 20 to 25 quid is generally what I'll spend on a book in Goldsboro. Just they up their price because it's, you know, signed and guaranteed to be a first edition. So about a week after Thunderhead arrived, Scythe arrived, and I was really disappointed that this big bloomin' thing has been stamped kind of straight onto the cover, because this cover is so eye-catching. It's so sharp and wonderful. Again, it's in this kind of odd fabric that means that these bits have all been worn off, and I won't ever find the right colour to kind of fill it in with either. But I'm currently reading this, very much enjoying this. Live Forever or Not by Neil Shusterman, dated again by him. He was really, really interesting to listen to. Had some very interesting ideas. It was a very, very small event, but glad that I got to meet him kind of so soon after this has been released in the UK. Hardback, slightly discounted at Book Depository, very happy to have it. Now we move on to the day I had in London where I was retaking the exam that I failed back in January, and I passed, and so immediately went on a book buying splurge. The first place I went was Forbidden Planet, and I found this, Spare and Found Parts by Sarah Maria Griffith, and it has got red sprayed edges, and it is signed in this lovely gold, kind of crossed out her own name there and then signed that in there. And I think I probably, again, first heard of this book at Youk, got a sampler. I think I actually was kind of reading the sampler and wasn't hugely intrigued, but, you know, find a signed copy, must have it. And then walking round Forbidden Planet, I get to Ben Aronovich's section, and Foxglove Summer, the next one in the series that I don't yet have and I haven't yet started, is their signed edition. So I've now got that book. This is the 5th in the series, so I'm kind of up for looking for the next one when I get there. Allowed one at a time. Regular price would have been $8.99, I believe. Now I also picked up a book by Kim Newman called The Nightmare, which is signed. She's got a lot of books signed in there. She must live in the area near there as well, because there's always signed books in there by her, and lots of them look really good, kind of all in this style. I've bought one before, I still haven't read it, but you know, I'll generally build up a small collection of her stuff. I try not to buy too many of these when I know that I haven't really heard anything about it, but you know, picked it up, $7.99, it's mine. Now this is a book that I kind of saw the red and had to have it, Paris Adrift by E.J. Swift, a signed book. I quite like the odd size of it for the UK, and you know, I like the artwork, and so, you know, that was mine. I think I might have had £1 or £2 off of this, funnily enough, but you know, yeah, I think I must have had £2 off of this, because I don't think I would have paid a tenner outright for it. But yeah, mine. And I also picked up a book that I have been seeing and meaning to pick up every time I see a signed edition, and that's Artemis by Andy Weir. signed copy and hardback, £12.99 probably. I don't think I had any money off on this. And people say, you know, it's not as good as The Martian. And typically I actually went into Waterstones and somebody, I think, probably picked up the last signed edition of The Martian that they had before I went up there, because she mentioned that they had them. I went up and there weren't any left, so missed out on an opportunity there. But he has quite a few signed editions around the place, quite a lot as well, so I'm not sure if he maybe, I thought he was I assumed he was American, but maybe he's in the area signing quite regularly, and I'll always look out for a copy of The Martian, because that is supposed to be a pretty good book. I did enjoy the movie, but you know, this was his kind of next work, so here we go. I then moved myself on to Waterstones Piccadilly and picked up The Invasion by Peter, Irish, could be pronounced anyone's, O'Gwalin, and this is the Greyland book 2, so the first book was The Call, and I have a hardback of that which I got signed by him at Yauk, and so I wanted to pick up the hardback edition just in case he comes to Yauk this year as well, and get this signed and keep my book series on the right kind of height level all the way throughout, because I know that I actually raced to kind of get one of the hardbacks because it had been out in paperback for months, and he kind of joked that, you know, I think he actually wrote in my book, "You got the last one," because the hardback was very difficult to get by the time that I actually bought it. The next book I got is this wonderful colourful Anassa by Josh Martin, which is the follow-on from his first book, Ariadne's. I have a signed and personalised copy of that from Yauk, but I just bought this copy at Waterstones, and it would have been £7.99, and it's all colourful, and I still haven't read the first book, and I will get around to it. This is a book I've been meaning to read for a long time, and that is More Than This by Patrick Ness, and they had a little table with signed goodies by him, so I picked it up. And I think that was a good choice. I think he's a very well acclaimed author, and people really enjoyed this. I remember the hardback was gorgeous. It actually had a little door here, and I can feel a little imprint on the door as well. But a signed copy, so eventually, you know, I've picked it up now. As I said, I spent a week working in Eastbourne, and there was a shop just a little way around the way from me, and I bought this copy of The Scarlet Letter by, I think his name is Nathaniel Hawthorne, and it is leather bound, gold sprayed edges, fabric on the inside here. And I've got June 1981, Edmonds, Washington, published expressly for the personal library of Gillertigving. I'm not sure what that says. Easton Press, and this was £15. I'll rub that out one day. But yes, Nathaniel Hawthorne, collector's edition, bound in genuine leather, and it is gorgeous. It's got its own kind of it's got its own bookmark at the bottom here, and is just beautiful. So I had to have it. Next to The Scarlet Letter was this edition of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and it was kind of the similar thing, gold sprayed edges, leather bound, fabric on the inside, the same kind of letter, Edmonds, Washington, 1984 this time, published especially for Siluenta Cumic. I'm not sure what that says, I just can't quite read it, but it's an odd name. Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, collector's edition, bound in genuine leather, and again this was £15, and I love the two sets. Like, they'll sit nicely together, and you know, I think it's beautiful copies to have, and I'll definitely go back in that bookshop and look for things like this in the future. I'm a bit sketchy as to when I actually kind of picked this book up, but I reserved it at Waterstones because I know I'd seen one at my local shop and then picked it up and got this signed at the Cruel Prince event. There was a signed copy of Let Me Lie by Claire McIntosh, which I was quite interested in. I think £12.99 is what I would have spent on this, and it's signed, so limited signed first edition. They've actually got that printed in there for Waterstones. That's interesting. They really do need to stop putting stickers on it that mark the pages at Waterstones, because it ruins the book, like it's done there. I don't know if it will do the same down here as well if I tried to take that off, but it has done at the top there, so they need to stop doing that, just to say that it's just £12.99 when somebody can very much quickly look in here and say, oh yes, it's £12.99. Now, I went to college for a week in London and had events after college every day in London, because kind of like I'm very rarely able to get to events in London, and therefore wanted to make sure I could do some. And I had the event which was in Crouch End, which is very North London, very difficult to get to, with Neil Schusterman, V. Schwab and Samantha Shannon, and I didn't need to buy books because obviously I've got Neil's books, I've got all of V. Schwab's books, I got her to sign her section of 13 Tales of Villainy, I've got all of Samantha's books except for a paperback of Songwriting, but I don't need to get one until I've got plenty and plenty of money because I've got too many copies already. I went into Forbidden Planet and I didn't buy anything, and then I went into Foyles and saw this hardback of Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh, which is a book I was anticipating from the beginning of this month. I love the cover. I'm not a fan of pink, but it works. It's beautiful. I've only seen paperbacks, which weren't very nice, and this is just, you know, it was $13.99, and as a reward for not buying anything in Forbidden Planet, I bought myself this. I also then bought Patrick Ness's The Ask and the Answer, and this is the second book in the Chaos Walking series, or trilogy. And I've got a first edition of the first book, so I thought why not get this 10th anniversary edition of this book, because I do love my black. The next book was something that actually arrived in my book box, and that is Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston, signed in there and sprayed edges because it is the Owlcrate edition. Very excited to read this, very excited to have a little bit of sci-fi coming back into my life. This is a bit of a funny book. I doubt I'll ever actually read it because I actually can't read it, and that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Scots edition. And that just means that if you've ever heard a very, very, very Scottish kind of person speaking, it's all, you know, the words come together, and it's just you can't read it. You have to know, like, Chape Terrain, the laddie what lived kind of thing. It's like, you know, I'm not even going to attempt, but it's completely kind of been, the T's have been turned into D's and O's, and we, and like little is we, and just completely kind of translated into how a Scottish person speaks, which is really, really amusing, and I thought I'd pick it up just for a little bit of fun to remember my time in Edinburgh. Now, the next book that I bought, I was in Amsterdam and I went into the Anne Frank house, and I have never actually bought or read. I attempted to read a couple of times when the BBC did a series on it, and my school obviously had several copies, but I would read kind of the foreword and maybe the first like couple of pages, and then I think I would get bored because I knew what happened, and it is obviously very sad and everything, and you kind of know like what happens at the end is the most interesting bit, and that's obviously not actually what happens in here because she doesn't, you know, but it is all about beforehand and during their time. And this was in the Anne Frank house because I've got a teeny tiny like sticker in there to say that's where I was, and I just bought this lovely kind of hardback copy as a symbol that, you know, to remind myself that I've been there, I've seen it, what it was like, how small the rooms were, but in actual fact I thought the rooms would be smaller than they were. So this is kind of my attempt, you know, now that I've been there, I really do need to fully read this book. In my time in Amsterdam, I also went to the Van Gogh Museum, or Van Gogh, however you'd like to pronounce it, and bought the masterpieces in the museum book, and it's obviously just got kind of all of the, most of the artwork and some descriptions and bits and pieces in it, and I absolutely loved the museum, so I had to buy it. And I can't remember if it was his 160th or 165th birthday it was this year, or would have been this year kind of thing, but I went the day before his birthday, and had to, I would have known, but you know, that would have been Easter Friday, I could have gone, like Good Friday, so it was probably a good idea I didn't try and go on that day. But as I was going around, all I was thinking about was the Doctor Who episode where they meet him, and yeah, it was very, very interesting. The last book I received in March was State of Sorrow, Belinda Salisbury, and I already got a copy of this in February because I went to the launch event. This has got a signed bookplate in it, and it is a hardback because it came with a Fairy Loot box, and it was kind of an exclusive hardcover rather than being a paperback. maybe you guys could suggest to me which one I should pick up first to read. I'm actually reading Scythe by Neil Shusterman at the moment, and we'll go on to Thunderhead pretty quickly so that I can kind of like shuck them off my list, because I do try to separate out my reading of series by like a book in between, but that means that I don't finish them a lot, because then I'll just suddenly start on other books and all sorts. So suggest whatever you like, whatever you think I'm going to enjoy a lot of, whatever you've enjoyed a lot of. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.